Welcome to my presentation on professional esports from a healthcare perspective. My research question was on what impact does playing professional esports have on the health of South Korean players? And my emphasis for this would be immediate, acute problems, and also what chronic health issues it might contribute to, especially in light of the really epidemic level of like chronic health conditions that we have today. I chose this topic because, for one thing, it's something more concrete with data that you can look up, I felt like, rather than looking at about ideas like, oh, why do certain stories do this, or how do people react. I feel that health and disease and statistics are more concrete things, and I tend to gravitate toward those kind of things. Also, I'm entering the healthcare profession, nursing specifically, so I felt this topic was especially appropriate because that's something that I have an interest in, especially in terms of, a lot of times in healthcare we're reactive versus proactive, and I feel like a lot of health conditions, as a healthcare professional, we should be trying to remedy health conditions before they actually occur. And so looking at things that might contribute to certain things helps us to be more mindful about education and the way we live to become more healthy. So that's kind of why I chose this topic. My hypothesis was that esports, the way they are played at this time, especially in the professional level, would have a negative impact both in an acute and a chronic way. Contributing factors that I see to this would be just the chronic lack of sleep, lack of exercise, poor nutrition. Those three things alone are major risk factors for many diseases, which we see over and over again, especially at this time in society. And also just the repetitive movements. They don't have a lot of overall exercise, but they're sitting for long periods of time with poor posture and doing repetitive small movements, and I would suspect that at the level that they play, that could have some painful consequences. So there aren't a lot of studies actually specifically on the health of professional gamers, but there's definitely enough information to put together the different aspects of this. For one thing, there's a lot of information on what pro gamers' lives are like. There's plenty that you can access from our textbook, and also I watched a documentary about pro gamers in South Korea. And then secondly, looking at that, pulling out the characteristics of their lifestyle. Once we know what their life looks like, we can say, hey, these things happen, and there are studies that show those characteristics and how they may contribute to diseases. And so my resources for that information: one, my pathophysiology textbook from my nursing classes. This looks at disease process and brings together risk factors, cause, effect, and symptoms. Also, I have two articles. One is a sleep deficit study, a controlled study, peer-reviewed, and another is public health records for health conditions that lead to mortality in South Korea, so specific to my demographic. And then also, my third step there is I have some resources from experts in that area and what the area of esports, professional esports, and what they're saying. I have physical therapists who specialize in treating and preventing injuries for these athletes. Also, although there isn't a lot going down in South Korea at this time, to really make a difference, some places in the West are instituting standards and requirements specifically for the health of their players, and so they're acknowledging certain problems and taking action to remedy them, and that's something that I bring into my essay. As far as my findings it pretty much validates my original hypothesis that it would have a negative impact. There is acute problems like with repetitive joint injuries and malnutrition. A lot of these players, they do get a basic salary, but no one's really making sure, and some food provided, no one's really making sure that they eat well or balanced. And then so many people who aren't top-notch level but just below or aspiring to be, they may have a fan following and be very popular but not actually have enough funding. And in the documentary in particular, I talked about this one kid who really didn't have anything to eat. Sometimes his fans would like order him pizza or something like that, but it talks a lot about that. Also just a chronic lack of sleep. And then another thing was that I wasn't really expecting but makes a lot of sense, and I pulled out from my research, is that really these South Korean players are particularly vulnerable and at risk. For one thing, it's a very, very competitive environment for gaming, and they're really putting their all into it, and sometimes the neglect of their own health. Also, there's a lot of scandals involving the coaches and the associations that they're supposed to be part of that don't, and the players are usually the ones that take the fallout, and so they're already at risk financially, and so definitely no one's really looking out for their health. That pretty much sums up the information that I gathered and I'm presenting at this time. I'm writing my paper and expanding on this information. So thanks for listening.